Not off. Chapter 1. He sits in the car lot waiting room with both knees pumping up and down like they can't be stopped, like two pistons firing with all the steam of 1,000 years of gasoline burnt up in a sudden blast. And he looks up at me with this weary little grin, and a half-squinted stare that makes his eyes disappear into folds of skin. I can't tell if he's in pain from the two bright lights, or maybe he's just a little disappointed in my pudgy gut and the chipped glasses on my face. I reach out to shake his hand. Hey, hi, I'm Brian from the Journal, remember? There's some hesitation in me as I sit down on the little uncomfortable business chair and give a quick glance around at the nearly empty building. His face twists into a bit of a smile, and he's missing a couple of teeth with the kind of randomness that tells you it isn't from some gradual decay or anything so boring as time. No, those ivories were shoved out into space in the snap of pain and anger and a little bit of despair. But it's just adding to the man's persona, like another accessory to go with his too many piercings and faded tattoos. I count 2 lip rings, a septum loop, and gauges and drooping ears, and at least 1 eyebrow stud, though it's hard to tell through the bushy green hairs. When he grabs my hand, it's with a tremoring grip that shivers like chattering teeth, and I wonder what he's on. Except it'd probably be easier to ask this guy what he isn't on. Half the reason I'm here is I saw him OD once already, and it wasn't a hospital visit that brought him back. His black faux leather fingerless gloves are rough and leave a slight residue on my hands that makes me cringe. I have to press my lips together in a polite gesture of goodwill to keep things chill. The last thing I want to do is scare him away or cause trouble. So, did you want to go somewhere else? Maybe we could grab some lunch. He just shakes his head, and he thumbs idly over to the coffee station of the waiting room. There's an offered couple of donuts and a box of individually wrapped muffins. We good to go here, says the man. You just ask your damn questions, and we get this done. My person of interest slips out a flask from a jacket that's neither fashionable nor large enough for the tall, bony man. At some time in its high-collared yellow vinyled past, the sleeves were ripped off and the wounds stitched tight. The bottom hem cuts off at about belly-button height, and some skin-tight long-sleeve shirt peeks out, hot pink, over whatever skin the jacket doesn't cover. He pours a likely alcohol into the foam cup and doesn't stop until it bubbles up just above the brim. Whatever coffee was in there is either drowned or dying of liver cancer, and it most certainly isn't a witch. I shake my head. No thanks. So, what's your name? Golfball, he says, and then gulps back half the cup of coffee. His hands shake a little bit more, and the inside of his cup splatters back and forth. He sets it down, uncaps the flask, and looks up. Did you want some or not? The repetitive question almost breaks me, but that's not a path I'd look forward to following. It's hardly past noon, and the slick white showrooms around me do little to inspire the need to drink. A shiny new car spins lazily on a motorized floor just behind Golfball. Through the room's window walls I can see people milling about and looking at the vehicles. My head tilts with all the questions I want to say, but all that falls out is, "What's with your name?" His lips curl back in an honest-to-God sneer, and his nose wrinkles like he's about to spit. Now see here, cunt. There's a couple of rules we talking about while you fuck around pulling cats out of my head. I ain't gonna tell you about the things I should have done. I ain't gonna tell you about how I got here. All I'm gonna say is some of what I've been through till the drinks stop coming. He chugs straight from his flask and tips it back until I'm sure it's gone. I try to think of something apologetic yet witty that might diffuse this situation, and yet I don't even know if the moment has a fuse so much as it'll eventually just self-ignite. The man isn't on a timer or a pressure plate. He's on some sort of die that a jaded fate keeps tumbling. I'm staring at him, and he basically proves my point when he takes it the wrong way. Oh, so you're looking like you know what I'm about to say? Well then shove off, and I'll find someone else to drink with. And don't you give me no lip at my fucking name. Golfball's just fine for a name, yeah? My expression must be suitably blank and shocked, because then this green-haired mohawked punk just shrugs his shoulders and slouches further so that he's practically lying down. He kicks up his feet to show a worn pair of flat-soled sneakers that I can see his toes through. So, we gonna drink or what? At that, he tucks away his flask and shows that it's only the first, because then he pulls out another from the other side of his jacket, and this one's larger and heavier and has about as many scrapes as the man's clothes and skin. I stand up and gesture at the wall. I'll get a cup. For all the life of me, I'm not sure why I don't just leave. Part of me is already too weirded out and annoyed by this strange figure's mannerisms and tone, and the very nature of our meeting place is weirding me out. Maybe that's the ticket. Maybe I'll focus on neutral ground and set things right. I pour myself a little of the burnt caffeine and stare at the guy shoving hands into skin-tight jeans. He's digging around with a wriggling that shakes the whole couch where he's sprawled. Why are we in a car dealer's store? I sit, setting my coffee down and watching as it's giving an alcohol topping. Why do you want to meet here? Man, for someone that's supposed to follow lives and get the buzz, you ain't thinking much about the why. Ain't motivation's key to selling your damn stories? Key to you knowing what the hell is going on? How's it you gonna go around and find what's next? One of his hands apparently finds the object of his pursuit and yanks out a small cylindrical pill. Golfball slaps it back into his mouth and takes a swig. My hands move with the need for something to do, and I start tapping the gleaming glass table with a rhythm. Nervous energy is running high with 1,000 volts buzzing and building and sending my neck hairs tall. Well, I can think of my own reasons. I mean, maybe you just like cars. Maybe you had to get your wheels fixed? Or want to buy a new ride, I guess? Fucking amateur, he mutters, sipping from his alcohol coffee and staring at the table and its scattered array of magazines. How'd you not get that I'm drifting on these streets? You think I got it in my pocket to come throw money away on some stupid machine? Hell. That hammer blow hits and it's right on the nail's head. I hadn't begun the thought of him as homeless, or a drifter, though it made a lot of sense and seemed obvious, even half-considered. Perhaps I'd been focusing too much on the miracle. Clearing my throat, I tap the side of my little pathetic cup and end up jiggling a dribble of liquid loose from its top. A thin trail of brown sludges its way down onto the previously smudge-free glass. Right, so anyway, maybe I should just fast forward to some real questions. Let's get to the thick of what happened last night. I was on all sorts of junk, and then I passed out. The end. Next. We sit there staring and eyeing each other with about equal parts stubbornness as far as I can tell. I'm almost certain I'll win this contest of wills, if only for the reason that his eyes hardly seem to stay open. I can't blame him. It's quiet and relaxing in its own right in the lobby. There's piped music and there's a faint whir of motors and an occasional honk. I choose not to be relaxed. Instead, I build myself up. I take little breaths and prep my mind to change gears and start shifting the mood. Look, you know damn well that your heart stopped out in front of that bar. You were dead, almost cold. It took half an hour for those paramedics to arrive. That whole time, all sorts of people were pounding your chest trying to get you back. I had been one of those fools, and I still remembered the panicked moments of memory's fault. Everything from CPR class had vanished, and all I could do was think of a dozen movies with lifeguard scenes. So then the medics jumped out of that ambulance, and as soon as they got within an arm's length, you sprang right up and ran off. I chased you for 3 blocks before you slowed down, and then you collapsed, and you almost got creamed by that truck if I hadn't pulled you to the side. His eyes roll to one side with a spasming fervor, and they disappear quick with nothing left but bloodshot white. He tosses back his head, and loose spikes of hair flop to the side. That reveals the prickly baldness beneath, and a black tattoo matching one on the opposite side. It's a smiley face, except without a smile. Doesn't look happy and doesn't look sad, it just looks bland and kind of bored. I press my question as he isolates himself into an arm-crossed pout. What really happened? We found something like 12 different needles in your pockets. You have an arm that looks like a moonscape, man. How are you still alive? He itches at one of those arms in question, glaring at me from over his shoulder, and he's turned half away. Fuck that. People got reasons for the things they do. Don't you dare look at me like that. Don't you fucking dare. Maybe that's just one outburst too many. Or maybe we've just overstayed our welcome. Some worker in a suit walks up with all his anger stuffed in a mile-wide smile. I can't imagine them enjoying the dirty shoes crumpling their magazine covers, or the weird funk starting to penetrate the room. It's probably only my apparent look of respectability that keeps the man civil. I really can't imagine anyone looking at Golfball and not wanting to call a 9 and 2 1s. Excuse me, gentlemen. We would be happy to help either of you if you're in the market for a car. We have this year's model, just newly arrived, on the floor right behind you. Golfball gets up with a noticeable teeter, and he's clenching his gap-strewn teeth like standing's only result will be falling. His legs actually pop, and I wonder if it's his knees, or maybe every part of him is struck with the same disease. Not for the first time, I'm wondering at the guy's age, wondering if he's got a life left at all, or if I'm just witnessing the last of his days. Then there's this moment where I think I see a bend, a slight overextension of his knees that looks strange and imagined. But then something else draws away my attention, so I look up to see a couple. So I realize that's the reason we're being shoved away. Actual customers have arrived. Golfball closes his eyes and he pauses and holds up a finger. Not a worry, not a sound. Just give me a moment. I'm gonna leave. I'm just gonna be gone. Only a moment. The man's legs straighten, and what I saw was most likely imagined. I begin to wonder darkly at seeing a repeat illusion, because it's not the first time. Last night I had seen, but the concern doesn't seem right, so I've got to be sane, and I ignore what I thought. The salesman looks confused, which is about the only proper reaction for the moment we're in. I myself am confused, and I'm torn between rushing up to help my temporary companion. The immediate notion is to let him sort out whatever he's going through. But I move. I want to feel helpful, and I grab up the 2 cups of coffee-flavored drinks. I become the focus of the group, and I try to smile for reassurance. Surely it's more for my own sake than either of the men. Fortunately, all goes well and nobody falls into the glass table. I'd imagined it, for a moment, with glass shards sprinkling all around. I'd thought of the young woman and her husband turning with shocked faces. I'd thought of their reaction as the half-baked punk lay there bleeding. I wasn't thinking of him, not his dying or getting injured or anything like that. I was just thinking how tragic it would be for this nice couple to have their day so ruined. And that's the reason I looked about as distant as the druggie while I walked away from the showroom into Florida's heat and humid air. I was doing my best to stay calm and put my train of thought back on journalistic tracks. Some part of me had seen a story, but now I was wondering what I'd been thinking. Golfball grabs his cup and slurps the whole thing back. He sniffs at the air with a slow roll of his neck, head tilting side to side, over and over, and with little pops and cracks. I glance at the man and point 2 fingers toward my car. That's my ride. I got nothing but time. You want to go somewhere? He groans a little, rubs his forehead, and starts walking for the vehicle. If anything, at least his ability to stand seems slightly recovered and able. He flips up his green hawk to toss it to one side, muttering curse words and all manner of nonsense that I can't decipher. I shrug, because there's really nothing else to do in that kind of situation, and I'm about 4 miles past my wit's end at this point. I knew the guy would be difficult to talk to, maybe a pain in the ass because of begging for drugs or something similar. Instead, I have these oddities and a lack of discussion, and it's more painful than requests for handouts. However, persistence has paid off before, and I decide to go with my hunch as far as I can, just to see what might happen. We get in the car, and that slight smell of pungent human makes me sigh just a little bit louder than's probably polite. Damn. I'm sorry, man. I know I'm a goddamn stink. You know how it is when you ain't got no way to really get cleaned up. I meant to walk over to the Y yesterday, but lost a bit more of the day than I wanted. It's all right, I say, starting up the car and pulling out of the lot. The salesman that booted us out of the waiting room stands just next to a line of cars, watching us leave with crossed arms and a scowl on his face. Irritation boils up in me. We weren't going to harm anyone or anything just sitting in there. I flip the guy off as we drive by.